The following is a live broadcast of a Lone Star community radio program, recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and facebook.com/irlonestar. For more information on this show, please visit our show page at irlonestar.com/shows. To sponsor or donate to this program, visit our donate page at irlonestar.com/donate, or email us at lscrstudios@gmail.com, or give us a call at 936-666-1084. Lone Star Community Radio production and broadcast is possible by folks like you. So sponsor and donate today.
You are listening to Lone Star Community Radio, a 104.5 KCZW LP Conroe and 106.1 KZCC LP Conroe, and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony Lynn Collins and Cheryl Ellsworth Jahani. We are your co-host here for the Legal Connection. We are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we are here on 104.5 and 106.1 every Tuesday from 12 to 1 p.m. discussing legal topics and current events, relevant matters that we think might be of interest to you or that you've let us know are interesting to you. Today, Tony and I are going to be talking about Second Amendment rights. There's a lot of discussion in the news about Second Amendment rights, and we're going to be also talking about the Stand Your Ground doctrine. I know that that couple from St. Louis has gotten a lot of press on standing their ground in their outside the front door of their home, and so we want to talk about that in Texas, and then we also want to, if we have time, get into homeowners associations and the covenants that are in effect with these homeowners associations in various neighborhoods and subdivisions, and how those covenants can affect your First Amendment right, your Second Amendment rights. So we've got a lot that we want to talk about today, but I thought that I would start today off by doing something a little bit different. I want to read you the poem. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but it's the poem by Longfellow called Paul Revere's Ride. A lot of you have heard it. I know when I was a kid, we memorized it in school, or at least parts of it. It's not that long, but it's long for a little kid to memorize, and I remember we used to have to know it. So I want to read it to you. For those of you who know it, you'll love hearing it. And for those of you who have never heard it, you'll love it. Hopefully I can make it through this without crying. Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. On the 18th day of April in 75, hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, if the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church Tower as a signal light. One if by land and two if by sea. And I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm. Then he said good night, and with muffled oar, silently rowed to the Charleston shore, just as the moon rose over the bay where swinging wide at her moorings lay the Somerset British man of war, a phantom ship, with each mast and spar across the moon like a prison bar, and a huge black hulk that was magnified by its own reflection in the tide. Meanwhile, his friend, through alley and street, wanders and watches with eager ears, till in the silence around him he hears the muster of men at the barrack door, the sound of arms and the tramp of feet, and the measured tread of the grenadiers marching down to their boats on the shore. Then he climbed the tower of the Old North Church by the wooden stairs with stealthy tread to the belfry chamber overhead, and startled the pigeons from their perch on the somber rafters that round him made masses and moving shapes of shade, by the trembling ladder steep and tall to the highest window in the wall, where he paused to listen and look down a moment on the roofs of the town and the moonlight flowing over all. Beneath the churchyard lay the dead, in their night encampment on the hill, wrapped in silence so deep and still that he could hear, like a sentinel's tread, the watchful night wind as it went creeping along from tent to tent, and seeming to whisper all is well. A moment only he feels the spell of the place and the hour and the secret dread of the lonely belfry and the dead. For suddenly all his thoughts were bent on a shadowy something far away where the river widens to meet the bay, a line of black that bends and floats on the rising tide like a bridge of boats. Meanwhile, impatient to mount and ride, booted and spurred, with a heavy stride on the opposite shore walked Paul Revere. Now he patted his horse's side, now he gazed at the landscape far and near, then impetuous stamped the earth and turned and tightened his saddle girth. But mostly he watched with eager search the belfry tower of the Old North Church, as it rose above the graves on the hill, lonely and spectral and somber and still. And lo, this makes me cry, and lo, as he looks on the belfry height, a glimmer, and then a gleam of light. He springs to the saddle, the bridle he turns, but lingers and gazes till full on his sight a second lamp in the belfry burns. A hurry of hooves in a village street, a shape in the moonlight, bulk in the dark, and beneath from the pebbles in passing a spark, struck out by a steed flying fearless and fleet, that was all. And yet, through the gloom and the light, the fate of a nation was riding that night. And the spark struck out by that steed in his flight, kindled the land into flame with its heat. He has left the village and mounted the steep, and beneath him, tranquil and broad and deep, is the mystic meeting the ocean tides, and under the alders that skirt its edge, now soft on the sand, now loud on the ledge, is heard the tramp of his steed as he rides. It is 12 by the village clock when he crossed the bridge into Medford town. He heard the crowing of the cock and the barking of the farmer's dog, and felt the damp of the river fog that rises after the sun goes down. It was 1 by the village clock when he galloped into Lexington. He saw the gilded weather cock swim in the moonlight as he passed, and the meeting house windows, blank and bare, gaze at him with a spectral glare, as if they'd already stood aghast at the bloody work they would look upon. It was 2 by the village clock when he came to the bridge in Concord town. He heard the bleating of the flock and the twitter of birds among the trees. He felt the breath of the morning breeze blowing over the meadows brown, and one was safe asleep in his bed, who at the bridge would be first to fall, who that day would be lying dead, pierced by a British musket ball. You know the rest in the books you've read, how the British regulars fired and fled, how the farmers gave them ball for ball from behind each fence and farmyard wall, chasing the redcoats down the lane, then crossing the fields to emerge again under the trees at the turn of the road, and only pausing to fire and load. So through the night rode Paul Revere, and so through the night went his cry of alarm to every Middlesex village and farm, a cry of defiance and not of fear, a voice in the darkness, a knock at the door, and a word that shall echo forevermore. For born on the night wind of the past, through all our history to the last, in the hour of darkness and peril and need, the people will waken and listen to hear the hurrying hoofbeats of that steed and the midnight message of Paul Revere. I was reading that to my husband last night. I think that's just a beautiful poem. I can't hardly make it through it without crying, because I think it's so important. And I think that, we take so much heat in our First Amendment rights, and, other people. Second. I keep saying first. Our Second Amendment rights, and, we get a lot of criticism from all over the world, but I just don't think they'll ever understand that this country was founded. We got our freedom because of our Second Amendment rights, and that's why we have those Second Amendment rights.
The Second Amendment, everybody that, particularly in that era, knew. Well, and throughout history, the people that rule the world, the people that have the biggest stick,
Right.
So, I mean,
Right.
the World War II ended in Japan because we had the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
It would have gone on for another year. I mean, it was really sad the way it had to go down, but we really saved a lot of lives doing what we did because they wouldn't back down. I was watching we're all into the war movies and stuff. But now let me ask you this. I was listening to the poem,
Right.
just taking it all in. And you had mentioned earlier, and I missed part of it because I was like busy doing some other stuff. When he was riding his horse,
Right.
he couldn't wait. He was a hero,
Right.
And he saw, the two lanterns, and he packaged up and he started going. The people were waiting because they knew they needed to defend themselves.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're saying this because I didn't really give the background. They knew that the British were coming. We just didn't know where they were coming.
Right.
Were they coming by
Land or sea.
land
Right.
or sea?
And they were in where was he? Boston? Where was he?
Yeah.
Philadelphia. I don't remember.
I've been
where he
there.
was.
I've been there before. I think it was where.
Wait, where did Paul Revere ride? Was it Philadelphia or Boston? I
No,
think
it wasn't.
Boston.
No, it wasn't Philadelphia. I know that. I think it was Boston. Oh my gosh, I've even been there and seen the Old North Church. And I think it was
We're bad.
Boston.
So I think our station manager Dick is going to give us the trivia information that we need.
Yeah,
What I'm reading is he was tasked to ride to Lexington, Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
Okay. All right.
Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And they said 75. I'm like 1775. That's crazy. It's not 1975. It's
I
not
know.
1875.
But it was a huge. I mean,
that wasn't that long ago.
It was a
Think about it.
12.5-mile ride.
Wow. And so
Throughout
he was
the night.
riding throughout the night, like 1 a.m, and he's screaming, "The British are coming!"
The British are coming.
And everybody is in their houses, and they go sleeping. But they that was like it wasn't like Santa Ana when we beat him and it was noon, and Sam Houston was just catching him on his siesta. This was in the middle of the night.
Right. Well, of course they came in the middle of the night. They wanted to surprise us, and we were really sure that they couldn't. The only way we could win was if they didn't take us off guard.
Okay, so the question is, these people were all ready and they had their arms, right? And I'm assuming that these houses were pretty far away, or I'm trying to get the picture.
It was rural, back then. Even if they had towns and stuff like that, there were some that were close together, but so many.
So the British
that
were
weren't.
coming to take people's homes, I
They
guess?
were coming to make everyone subdue and stop this crazy rebellion.
And instead, they disarmed and they stood their ground, or did they meet? I don't know enough about history.
You mean, did they have hand-to-hand combat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I didn't know. That's really bad.
And a lot of people died.
So, what happened to Paul Revere?
I don't know. You could ask his widow's great-great-great-great-granddaughter.
Or I could Wikipedia and
Well,
find out.
I saw his tomb.
Maybe our station manager Dick can look that up. Can you pull up Paul Revere and find out when he died?
I think he lived for a while, but they didn't live all that long back then.
Oh, no.
He died 1818 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Okay,
he
so
was-
1818.
When was
so
he
that's
born?
at least
He was
40
born
years after
1735.
Oh wow!
Wow, see,
He
most people
lived
did live to about
80?
70 or 80.
No,
a lot
they
of people
didn't.
lived. In our family, they did.
Did they? Yeah.
Well, the men didn't. The women all lived to like 100, so I'm
Oh,
safe.
wow.
The men died
Well,
young.
my grandmother lived to be 99, but I don't know if I'm safe.
Good die young. Anyway, so that goes to show that Second Amendment rights were critical.
They're everything. That's why it's an amendment.
Now, have you read the Federalist Papers? I know it's kind of
Yeah.
They're long and they're boring, and they were written really, really fast.
Yeah.
And as I was reading about Hamilton and Jefferson and all
Well,
that,
Hamilton's out on Disney Plus. Have
I
you
know
seen
that.
it?
I have not seen it yet.
Tony,
We've been watching all the
you've
Gospels.
gotta see it. You've gotta see
You
it.
got to watch the Gospels, Matt, Mark, Luke, and
Oh,
John.
I've watched them. I
they-
have them all on DVD.
I didn't know they actually read it. You don't have to read the Bible anymore. You can watch it on TV. It's insane.
Yeah, or all
So
these
that-
apps on your phone.
To answer your question, when Paul Revere delivered his message, the local Minutemen got together, and that was when the first battle that happened that started the revolution due
Okay.
to Paul Revere
Thank
warning
you.
them.
Okay.
So
That was the first battle. And all those Minutemen, everybody was a Minuteman. They just had this neighborhood was a group
Right,
of
and they're already
Minutemen,
a
and
minute,
this neighborhood was a group of Minutemen. Yeah.
Okay, so he was born in 1735. So he was riding when he was 40. He's pretty
Oh,
old.
that's interesting because it was 75, so
Yeah.
30. Yeah, he was
Wow.
40. 40's not that old though.
It wasn't those days. They didn't have the stuff we have now to kind of keep in shape.
But
and all that.
you know how hard it is, how hard it would be to get on a horse after you haven't ridden for 20 years. He probably rode that horse all the
That's
time.
true. That's true. That was
you know.
their modus of,
Yeah.
of transportation. All right, so that goes to our next
Second Amendment.
critical information, and it goes toward the St. Louis couple that was defending themselves that has now been indicted or charged. I don't know if it's indicted yet, but
They were indicted.
oh, they actually got them indicted that quick.
Yeah, the
Oh my
prosecutor.
gosh.
Do you have their name? What is their name?
I
that
can't remember. I
couple?
didn't pull up the article on it. I do know that I have a visual image of this couple that knew that there was an emergency because all of New York and,
Well, they
and
had
Chicago was
warning
being
they
burnt
were
down.
coming.
Right, and that they knew that they needed to arm themselves, just like the Paul Revere group, because they were if they were going to burn their house down, what were they?
Mark and Patricia McCloskey.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And they're two
McCloskey.
attorneys. We know that, and they live
See,
in.
I didn't know that until you told me that.
Yeah, they are. The beautiful mansion that you see them standing in front of was one of the Anheuser-Busch heirs' mansions, the daughter, and they redid it, and so they're very proud of their home, and it's a gated community. And when they broke the gate down, they felt like they were. And this is a defense attorney. The man he knew.
Oh, is he?
What his rights were.
Okay.
So he stood his ground, and of course the woman's kind of. It doesn't matter, just like in Texas, if your gun has bullets or doesn't, it's still going to be considered an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, even if it's not loaded, because the fear that is brought by that.
Sure.
But it has to be the
Assault.
motivation, and in this case, that wasn't the case at all because there's a lot of exceptions.
What do you mean it have to be the motivation?
Well, I mean, if I had a gun in my purse right now and I was mad at Dick because, I'm not a mean person and I wish he didn't wear red shirts because I'm not in the mood for that today, whatever, crazy. And I got my gun out and was like, Dick, change your shirt color. I don't like it today. And that would be an aggravated assault, even if it didn't have any bullets in it in Texas. And
Because it created the fear and apprehension in him. That
and if somebody's in a car is a deadly weapon. If somebody is telling you they're in their car, and like this happens a lot with children exchanges with family situations when you have two angry, hostile parents because that once loved each other don't love each other anymore, and someone in the car will be there. Someone's blocking them, let's say, or the new spouse or whoever's in it. It's always some hostile situation though, and if they bump you with the car, or if
you mean bump your body or bump your car?
that happens a lot, believe it or not, where people are exchanging kids and they're not going fast, but they're like, get out of my way, because that's an aggravated, you can't go anywhere. But you would think, so they need to back up or just sit still if this person moves. But if that person that's standing in front of the car has got a gun, that's an aggravated assault. And you have self-defense. You can defend yourself and run over them if you need
bump
to.
'em.
All right. And so that's when people
Really?
run and go find a gun real quick and put it in their hand. Okay, we don't want to do that. That's,
Okay.
just not, okay, so.
But Second Amendment first. Tell our listeners what Second Amendment is before we get into
Well,
the
the Second
standard
Amendment,
ground.
and the reason I asked you about the Federalist Papers is because I believe it was Jefferson that didn't even believe that we needed the Bill of Rights, the amendments to the Constitution. It's either Hamilton or Jefferson.
Was it Jefferson? I thought Jefferson wanted the Bill of Rights.
I didn't watch the movie.
It doesn't talk about. Well, if it does, it talks about it very
now
fast.
I have to ask. Dick
me
took a
see.
history
Let me-
lesson. Who wrote the Federalist Papers? Was that? I thought that was Jefferson, but it could have been.
So the Federalist Papers.
Because Hamilton died, his son died in a shoot, in a draw, and he never got over that. I know that because I know the history is his 18-year-old son
It
was
was
defending his
written
honor.
by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay.
Okay, so it was Hamilton. Hamilton wrote the Federalist Papers, and
the Federalist Papers are against the amendments to the Constitution.
I can't remember. So look up
'Cause
the
I
Federalist
think-
Papers. I was
have it
reading
right
the
here.
Federalist Papers.
It's a collection of 85 articles and essays written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay under a collective pseudonym. And then there were anti-Federalist papers.
But they couldn't, because they published them, the people trying to oppose them like a response couldn't write them fast enough. And the
Yeah,
Federalist Papers
that's
were against
Hamilton.
the president at that time because Hamilton wasn't. He had been sort of.
I'm reading that the Federalists argued that the Constitution did not need a Bill of Rights
Okay.
because the people in the states kept any powers not given to the federal government.
Right, so that's what Hamilton believed.
Anti-Federalists
Jefferson-
held that the Bill of Rights was necessary to safeguard individual liberty.
Right, and And so
and that was Thomas Jefferson.
So Hamilton did not want the Bill of Rights, but Thomas Jefferson did want the Bill of Rights. And I remember reading all those Federalist Papers going, wow, this guy just wrote so eloquently.
He was brilliant.
And how in
Alexander
the world
Hamilton was brilliant.
How did he write that? And they couldn't respond to them quick enough. But they did not want the 10 amendments, and I'm so glad they have them because
me too.
They help me so much in all of my briefing and my law because I can go straight to First Amendment rights, which is religious freedom of speech, things that you don't think you're just thinking in school when you're learning in high school. I don't want to learn this. They are critically important, and our forefathers knew what they were doing when they put it together. So the Second Amendment,
I think it's the best thing Jefferson did.
It's unbelievable that just over 200 years ago that these people that weren't even like scholars or whatever, they were just they came over from England and they were fleeing.
They were world leaders. They were very well educated, very sophisticated people.
I see them more like John the Baptist and the sheepskin.
They weren't. They knew what they were doing.
They did a very good job, and we would not be what we are today had they not done it. Now, the Second Amendment, though, and that's what we're talking about today, because I've used every amendment. I kid you not. In my briefing, I've hit some violation of every amendment. But the Second Amendment rights are really big in Texas, and they go toward the stand your ground. And the Second Amendment, and I'm not going to go into all of it, and I don't. In fact, you might want to pull it up real quick to read it because I think it's pretty short.
It is.
But it basically gives you the rights to bear arms. So what does the Second Amendment say specifically?
Let's see. Amendment 2. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Okay, but you have there's certain parameters that are set by the state laws. That's a federal, that's an amendment to the Constitution. Then the state can also, and they do have laws that regulate that, and that's when we have the license to be able to carry,
right,
and when you can have a gun and when you can't have a gun, and that kind of thing. So the states regulate that, and that goes toward another Constitution amendment, and I believe it's the 10th Amendment that says that the states their laws won't be abrogated by the federal law. States can set their own laws, or it's the other way. But one way or the other, the states, the federal government. Well, look at the 10th Amendment because that one's important too because it's the Erie Doctrine, and I just wrote a brief on the Erie Doctrine.
Wait a minute. The Erie Doctrine is the 10th Amendment?
Yes, it is. The Erie Doctrine basically says that because it had to do with the Erie Railroad in Pennsylvania, and it basically says that you have to use states' rights. If the state has a law, the federal government can override it. That's the Erie Doctrine.
Okay. The 10th Amendment, the power is not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people.
Okay, so the Constitution overrides all. The 10th Amendment basically says the Constitution is going to override anything that the states do, but we're going to leave the states to everything else. And so that's what we have right now. And that's why when you have a problem with your state laws and your regulations, that you can go above that to the Constitution. And that's why we have all these constitutional Supreme Court cases where, just like this one, this was the Erie Doctrine came from Erie versus the United States, Erie Railroad. And it went toward the 10th Amendment saying, hey, 10th Amendment, our state of Pennsylvania, we had a right to do whatever it was in that argument because the 10th Amendment reserves to the states what our rights are, and the federal government can't tell us what to do. All right, so you can always go to that, and that's why you always can default. You've violated my First Amendment right. Well, you're going pretty far up the chain, the food chain, when you're saying that they've violated your First Amendment rights, but you still use it. Many times you have a choice between what your forum is, whether you're going to go to state or to federal, and I don't want to get into all of that right now.
Right, because our listeners won't understand.
But basically, you can do both. And so we're going to go to stand your ground, though, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Second Amendment is the right to bear arms, and it shall not be infringed.
And it will not be infringed.
Yeah, and I think today is a great show because we've touched on this before that, we have this Second Amendment right, but then we have all these restrictions like homeowners associations.
Well,
and even
the state law, it goes like, I think the hierarchy without looking at like a pie chart is you've got the right to bear arms, and then you have the states that are giving you the parameters. And so you have the state laws that say you have to have a license and you can't have it, for public safety.
Open carry
if you
or
don't
whatever.
have, it's got to be not in plain sight unless you have a license. You can't get a license if you've got a DWI or if you have family violence. All these other things that kind of kick in from state to state. They change, so you have to know those state laws if you cross over to Louisiana, because you might not.
Sure.
You can't just rely upon the Texas state laws anymore, even if you're right there on the border, even though they're very similar. And then you come down to your local rules. You have the county rules. Then you may have county and city, depending on the size of the county and the city, one may have a hierarchy than the other, but you're going to have another set of laws there. Then
is the hierarchy determined by the size?
No, it's not. But normally your state and your county ordinances is what they're called.
Right.
They align with each other. So in Montgomery County, to our listeners, you've got Montgomery County. I'm pretty sure they're ordinances, and then you have the city ordinances, and you have a lot of places in Montgomery County that are outside of a city. They're only in the extraterrestrial jurisdiction, right?
Sure.
And so, a lot of people in Montgomery County have to rely upon your county ordinances because you don't fall into a nice, pretty city boundary situation, right? And that's the same thing with your sheriffs and your constables. Your jurisdiction is kind of, a lot of it overlaps. That's why you'll get a ticket from the Conroe police, or you could get a ticket from the sheriff, or you could get it from the DPS, which is, not the DPS, but the State Patrol.
Highway Patrol.
So, and then you could actually get it from the FBI. So you have all these different law enforcements, and there's layers of them.
With overlapping jurisdiction.
Right. And the law, and then with homeowners, you've got an extra layer. You've got a homeowners association. If when you bought your house, it was subject to that, or if one was created afterward.
Right.
And so, and that all goes towards stand your ground at your home.
Right.
Can you? And we had a situation like this in our subdivision. If you are threatened, if you have a security issue, if
you mean like burglars, a security issue?
Somebody has come into your house. Let's say this happens a lot in Houston. I don't know how much here. I haven't looked at all the crime statistics, but if somebody breaks into your house or somebody threatens you, if you have maybe even a situation with an ex or something coming to your house, which is not uncommon, where they have a key or they sneak in or they're mad or they want to spy on you, whatever, that's still trespass if they've got one of the temporary orders. And we do have just another little tidbit of information. If someone files for divorce here in Montgomery County, and I think it's the same way in Harris and the various other counties, you've got standing orders that are going to automatically, when it's filed, even before you're served, that prohibit you from doing certain things.
Right.
That you can't be like emptying the bank account and all that kind of thing. And then when you get, usually you'll have agreed orders, whether it's a Rule 11, which is an agreement between the parties, that's not official by the judge, but it's sanctioned once it's filed, and it's as though the judge signed it.
Right.
And it's got to be filed. There's a lot of the Rule 11 has to be in writing. It has to be the agreement, and it has to be filed before it becomes effective. And it doesn't have the same effect as an actual temporary orders from a judge. So there's a lot of things that go with that too.
Why is that?
It doesn't, because we had a Rule 11 agreement with our
it just doesn't have a lot of authority.
That we didn't want to go to the hearing for the Rule 11 for the temporary orders because it was going to be costly. We had a lot of attorneys involved. It was judicially inefficient if we already had an agreement, and so we said, okay, well, enter an agreement that you can't leave you can't move out of the building that you're renting because we've got a landlord's lien on $500,000 worth of property, and you owe us $500,000 in rent.
Okay, so you had this agreement, this Rule 11.
So they said, no, we'll give you 10 days advance notice if we're going to move out. That way we could be there to make sure that the collateral,
your
the lien was
protected,
there,
right?
You could sell it and what have you, but we just want to. It was the best way we knew during the lawsuit to get our rent, that they could still operate their business and they could find a way to get a loan to pay the rent they owed, and then they could still, or it was a win-win situation. But it was not a win-win because they decided, you know what? We're going to lose because we owe this money, so we're going to haul everything out. And so at mediation, we did go to mediation. I forgot where we went, but wherever it was, the day of mediation, our daughter called and said, "By the way, did you know the tenants have got U-Hauls and all kind of people hauling stuff out?" And they were there. They said people doing it for them. And so we went to the we amended our pleading, and we said now that this is theft too on top of it for the lawsuit we were in, and before we were going to have another temporary orders hearing because we wanted to get the stuff back that they took. And they were like, oh, well, we won't get it back, and everything is still good. We're still your friend. We're still your tenant. We've been your tenants for 10 years, whatever. And we're going to do a handshake that we won't move anything else. Oh, I take that back. That it already moved everything out. The situation was the Rule 11 was they wouldn't sell any of the property without letting us know because we had the lien on it.
Right. That's what I remember. So anyway, you got this Rule 11, and what did
then,
you find in the court? The
Rule
court
11
didn't honor it?
I take that back. That wasn't the Rule 11. The Rule 11 was the one that we had entered in the beginning of the lawsuit. That's what it was. The Rule 11 at the very beginning of the lawsuit was you won't haul everything out.
Oh.
And that when they did haul everything out, we went back to show that they had breached the Rule 11.
The court didn't care.
And that the court said this is not an order. And then when we then they filed bankruptcy after we did win the suit. They owed us like $300,000, $500,000, whatever it was, and so they declared bankruptcy for the very purpose of not paying that judgment, and that was fraud because they had the money, they just didn't want to pay that judgment, and so we went to bankruptcy court and we filed what's called an adversary suit, and only not to cancel the bankruptcy, for only for that one
for
judgment.
Your claim, right?
And the judge said, Judge Jones said, no, Rule 11 is not an order. So
right,
but we were prepared to fight that fight because we knew that was like an order, and a lot of attorneys that I'd spoken with that counseled me said it's an order. It is not an order. So even though it may seem sometimes the road that's less work may not be the one you need to take, we should have gone to the temporary order hearing and gotten a judge to sign off on it, and we didn't. Okay, but that being said, deadly weapons and stand your ground, we're going to talk about that just briefly. And here's the stand your ground law. The stand your ground law is the same. It's not the same as in St. Louis or in, I guess,
Missouri.
St. Louis,
Yeah, they were in St. Louis.
If there's two St. Louis's, Kansas and Missouri.
I think they were in Missouri.
Okay. And I always think of it as is it Kansas? I don't. The St. Louis, Kansas. I don't even. That doesn't even ring a bell. It's always
Kansas
Missouri.
has. No, you're right. There's this funky thing going on with Kansas and their
It's
their
right
borders.
on the border or
yeah.
something. Okay, Texas has stand your ground law. It's come out in the news for various reasons. People use it as a defense when, for the wrong reasons. A lot of times will just be, white supremacists or just angry rednecks or whatever will get their guns out to shoot somebody that came to the door to visit. And it's bad because they're just knocking on the door and they shoot them, or they don't like them because they just don't like their neighbors and they say, "Oh, stand on my ground." That's not what the stand your ground law is for. It's for the situation like the St. Louis people or somebody that has tried to break in your house and attack you. And in our neighbor situation, they had some people that followed them in to their house. This is right here in Montgomery County.
Followed them in
They were just shopping.
their gate.
Yeah, they were just shopping, and when the gate opened, because it's a very expensive house.
I know this house. I've seen it. Is it the one on the corner, the big one?
Beautiful house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's exquisite. And so they went in and they were followed in, and these people got out and they were going to rape, mug, kill, whatever, because it's a great big house. And fortunately,
how many people were there that followed them? Do you know?
4 people were in the car, from my understanding, but I don't know. I'm only going by what I've been told. This is kind of hearsay. But people came in. Fortunately for the lady, who's the
homeowner,
young, petite, whatever. She and had a really nice car too. So that's probably why they followed her. And this was in the last month. This wasn't that long ago. This is when all of these riots were going on and people were getting crazy. And so now this happens, and you want to bear arms, right?
Right.
And you should bear arms to protect yourself against people that are unlawful or doing something for the wrong reasons. And so what protected her, though, was she had a lot of big dogs, like big dogs.
What kind were they? Do you know?
I can only tell you that I've seen them, and I went around the neighborhood and canvassed the neighborhood for a deed restriction amendment. The dogs didn't get me, so but they must know when someone's threatening, for whatever. So
dogs are great that way.
So they are really big, though, like as in 100 pounds, 120 pounds.
Like Rottweiler big?
Yeah, big dogs, and they're all different, and I love them, and this protected
different
her.
kinds of dogs?
Because
okay, that's
they're all
cool.
different, and they ran out, and that scared the people off, and they left. And so these neighbors put signs up on their gate that said, "Trespassers will be shot on sight." okay, and that's
there's your warning.
That's unusual because we've got it's pretty a nice subdivision, and so
So my question, Tony, is I know this house. It's got a circular driveway type thing in the front and 2 gates. I think. Did they hang them on the iron
It's
gates?
right in front of the gates with 10 feet of the street. Like that is, in Florida, they could do this with no problem because the law says in Florida, their actual statutes, that if you post a no trespass sign for security, which is what this is, basically, as long as it's within 10 feet of the road or your gate, I think
you're fine.
But that's not, we don't have that statute in Texas, although we should have that statute in Texas. And our statutes, and I kind of brought those up, don't give you that benefit. It basically lets you have religious signs, and there's some perimeters on that, and you can have solar panels, and there's some perimeters on that. We have statutes in the Texas Property Code under Chapter 202 that say your deed restrictions allow you. They are going to govern what you can do with your home, and Chapter 204 in Montgomery County, depending on which subdivision you're in, it's got some rules on whether that one will apply or not. And Chapter 209 tell you the procedures to get to these restrictions. But 202 has got, in fact, it's called, I printed it, it's called Construction and Enforcement of Restrictive Covenants. And it's got the exceptions in it about, whether you can fly a flag and if you can have political signs and that kind of thing. And so I was looking at that because there was a big, a heated discussion last night in our Zoom homeowners association meeting about these signs. And I thought they were fine because I thought this was during a period, just like with the St. Louis couple, where you've got a situation in the universe of problems with the COVID, and you've got people that aren't acting lawfully, that are burning, especially in these more liberal cities that are burning businesses and starting that crazy, little city of their own, whatever that was up in Oregon. Yeah, and insanity.
What is that?
I forgot
called?
what they called it.
Hops.
What was it called? The little city? The city in Oregon? They named it something like
they
Trap
changed
or
the name.
Yeah, it was like I can't remember the name of the state. The new phony state that's been taken down.
Oh, CHOP.
Chop. Okay, thank you. The city of Chop.
Why in the world would they name it Chop?
It stood for something. It stood for.
I'm looking right now.
I'm loving that we've got
citizens hating other people.
No, that's what it feels
Citizens
citizen
harassing.
Oppressive.
Capitol Hill organized protest.
Capitol Hill
Okay, thank you.
organized
What were we doing
protest.
out to today, Dick?
I
You were
don't
just
know.
you were just like filling us all in.
I don't know.
Apparently,
all
it was held
knowing.
in Capitol Hill. That's why they called it Capitol
Okay.
Hill.
Oh,
Organized
okay.
Anyway, I don't think it exists anymore, but that was right when this was happening, when this happened to our neighbors. And, the insanity with governments allowing it, like the St. Louis couple actually being charged for protecting, that's just insanity. And then the governor.
Do you remember what they were charged? Well, I just told you they were charged. What were they charged with? I was watching
believe
this.
I don't even know, but I bet station manager Dick can look.
It was an assault. It was an assault. I think it was an assault. I
can't remember. I don't
What
know.
am I looking up?
You're looking up what the St. Louis couple was charged with.
Okay, so they were charged. I just had it. Give me a second.
I bet other shows have been doing it on that. That's just such a hot topic right now.
Oh, it's
The
unbelievable.
Maybe, I think it was brandishing.
Yeah. No, it wasn't brandishing. That's what I was saying. If you're going to charge them with anything, it
Right.
should be brandishing.
I didn't even know it was against the law.
Oh, yeah, you can't brandish a weapon. I mean, we have.
I
in
forget
Texas,
what the laws
it's
are.
different,
I
but-
wait for people to come to me after they've been charged, and then I find out if it's okay because I don't brandish weapons typically, so I don't know anything about it. I love your ring. It's hypnotizing me.
Oh,
It's like, I love the
thank
emerald.
you.
Okay,
Thank you.
What
I'm
we
looking
have
it up right now.
here? Okay, while you were looking at
I found it.
Okay.
Okay, so they were arrested. It's illegal to wave weapons in a threatening manner.
they're actually arrested.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
They were-
they
Yeah.
bail out.
that was on.
But that is brandishing
The 20th,
a weapon. You're
yesterday.
right. That's brandishing.
That was yesterday. Oh my gosh! And so, was it? That's not a felony. Is it a misdemeanor?
No, it's a felony.
It's a felony. You're kidding.
In St.
Not
Louis,
Texas.
it
It's
is.
not.
Uh-huh,
It
in
is
St.
not.
Louis it is.
But it's not in Texas. You can brandish weapons. I know. I got a lot of misdemeanor people
Yeah.
brandishing weapons.
They
Yeah.
were charged with felony unlawful use of a weapon for displaying guns during the protests. So,
That was it.
Wow. Well, I know that in Texas you can carry a long, rifle with you anywhere as long as you're not pointing at somebody.
Can you really?
Yes, we had that on one of our shows.
I remember that.
Yeah, so
You just walk around.
All right, so here's stand your ground, people, and
Okay.
this all came up because our neighbors, and I'm going to finish that little discussion we had. We had some neighbors that were like, they need to take those signs down. They were ruining the value of our neighborhood, and I'm like, a $2.5 million house is not ruining the value of our neighborhood, and they're giving the trespassers a warning sign. You come on, you're going to be shot. Because stand your ground, you don't have to give them a warning sign. And I will say this to our neighbors, and they're probably not listening because they've got, they're probably making gazillion more dollars to pay for more houses out there. But if you can get first, you have to look at your the covenants. You have to start low. If your homeowner association give a problem about your no trespass signs, your security signs, your political signs, you have a rights under the statute to have certain signs, no matter what your covenants say, because they've made them not enforceable. But if and I haven't read our homeowners association rules because this hadn't come up for a while.
Right.
I believe you can have security signs, and to me, that's a security sign.
Yeah.
You can have political signs like you can have right now, and if you want to put like a little byline on the bottom that says, "I'm going to vote for, Chief Justice Goldman," who we're going to give a shout out because
yes,
he won.
congratulations, Scott
and,
Goldman.
New Judge Santini. That's pretty exciting
Yes.
too. The only two people on the runoff ballot.
Congratulations.
And for anybody that's listening, I did not know this. The runoff for the mayor's race is actually in November. I didn't know why it wasn't on the ballot, but hopefully all voted. It was really exciting, and I think that we're going to talk about that a little bit about the election and the results and all that stuff. But right now, we're going to go back to stand your ground. The people that were arguing at our homeowner association, we had very vocal people saying they need to take the signs down right now. And the board was like, yeah, we're talking about it. And I'm saying, no, during a situation where you're in a pandemic and you've got people that are threatening you and there's lawlessness, not
And
in
you've been
Montgomery County,
followed on your
and you've been
property.
followed, then you're actually helping the person that's going to hurt you because first off, you're telling them up front, I'm going to shoot you. Secondly, why can't you have signs during that? You're actually alerting the neighborhood that something happened.
Right.
And I think it's a security sign. I think that there's a loophole that they should be able to get around it, and they should not have to take their signs down. The house is beautiful, and those signs are not lowering the value. And if those people left and somebody else came in and didn't take care of the house like they do, then I don't want to run these people off. I want to keep them happy. These are
Right.
good neighbors.
Right.
So shame on you, people that were upset about the sign. Y'all need to
Agreed.
get with it. Okay, so stand your ground. This is important, though,
Okay.
because we're a big gun-owning state, and you need to know when you really can do it. A stand your ground law is also a line in the sand and no duty to retreat. And I believe it's called the Castle Doctrine law.
It
Okay,
is.
It provides that people may use lethal force to defend themselves or others, right of self-defense, against threats. God bless you. Get God in there. Against threats or reasonably perceived threats. That's important.
Like what happened with that couple in Missouri.
It can't just make them up. It has to be threats or reasonably perceived threats. Not somebody that's delivering, your prime, Amazon stuff. Regardless of whether they can safely retreat from the situation. Okay, regardless of
So
whether.
if they can safely retreat, that's no.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, it does not matter.
Yeah, you
Yes.
don't have to.
You don't have to. That's why the guy in Florida was okay. He didn't have to safely retreat. The problem is, right now we've got security cameras, so if somebody came up, we'd know, but we'd be dead if we didn't. If we didn't bear arms.
You're right.
Okay.
Security cameras don't save you.
Yeah, they only after
Record.
the fact, your
Yeah.
heirs can now get to the people that did it if they were rich. But it's kind of like that judge's son that got shot at. That's a whole different
Wasn't that
story.
horrible?
That's crazy. Anyway, under such stand your ground law, people have no duty to retreat from any place where they have a lawful right to be,
Like their home.
like their home or their car. Or, wherever it be, their church, I guess, and may use any necessary force if they reasonably believe they are in imminent danger or death, serious bodily harm, kidnapping, rape, or in some jurisdictions, robbery, or some other serious crimes. The exact details may vary by jurisdiction from state to state, and we're going to talk about the Texas rules. Texas is pretty broad, though, and I believe that imminent danger of death or serious bodily harm is going to fall into any of those categories because robbery is a threat. It's not
with a gun.
It's not just you came in. That's burglary when someone's not there. Robbery is when it's person to person.
And isn't it when you have a gun?
It doesn't. Well, any deadly weapon. It doesn't absolutely have to be a gun.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Robbery.
Okay.
That's aggravated robbery with the gun. You can rob somebody without a deadly weapon. If you face to face with them and say, "Give me your money," or "I'm going to punch you in the face," I mean, your hand is not registered deadly weapon, but that's still robbery. Aggravated is when you introduce a deadly weapon.
I thought it was burglary was when you sneak into someone's house at
Yeah,
night.
well, that's burglary.
And robbery is when you sneak into there with some sort of a deadly
Well,
weapon.
no, robbery is when you sneak in and they confront you. Robbery is person to person. Burglary is I snuck in, they didn't see.
Okay.
And it's robbery, I guess, if there's confrontation. I think it's still burglary, even if you're hiding in the closet. I guess they didn't confront you.
Okay.
If there's a confrontation. And we'll have to get into the nuances of
Sure,
robbery
sure.
and burglary. But people should not be creeping into your house at night and stealing stuff one way or the other. You're going to get in
Right.
trouble. Okay. Don't be
Right.
doing that. Even if it's your ex or if it's your boyfriend or your
Right.
girlfriend. And if you're sneaking around or if it's a potential boyfriend and you just want to see if they're you know what to get their cell phone,
Don't
be
do
doing
it.
because you're just so tempted when there's somebody you want to know about. Nobody has to worry about that now. I've been safe. I'm safely off the street from for the last 15 years, and married to my beloved, and so everybody's safe from friendly stalkers that are just trying to check
You
out that
are
kind of
so
thing. Okay.
funny.
The alternative to stand your ground, followed by many jurisdictions, is duty to retreat. Now we don't. I don't believe in Texas. I'm gonna look at that right now because
no, Texas doesn't have a
Texas
duty
does
to
not
retreat.
have a duty
but
to
I think
retreat.
California does.
But we do not in Texas, so I'm happy to say that now. And I don't believe you have a duty retreat in Missouri either, but I don't know Missouri law. We are Texas licensed in federal law, and we can handle in federal courts. But when people ask me questions in a different state, I have to say, I'm going to be malpracticing unless you go talk to somebody over there. So to kind of know that, even though the state laws are similar. Under which, and I got to qualify that, they're not necessarily similar, but just talk to you. If you're not in Texas, we cannot help you, and the laws do change from state to state and jurisdiction. Under which, it says you have a duty to retreat under which people may not use deadly force, even in self-defense, if they could retreat with complete safety. Even duty to retreat jurisdictions, though, generally take a stand your ground approach when the defender is in the defender's home. Okay? This is called the Castle Doctrine. The Castle Doctrine and stand your ground laws more generally provide defenses for people who have been charged with criminal homicide, attempted criminal homicide, and similar crimes. And before I go on with that reminds me of the people that when there's a search warrant and the police went to the house and they killed the people improperly, and that guy has been indicted, the detective, the one that's got the search warrant signed, that very similar to the Trump, President Trump's dossiers that where they put together the at the, what's it called, the court, it's the cyber court. Oh, God, tell me which court it is. It's the one that you go to when you want to get the authority to search somebody's property, but it's under the federal rules, and it's in the court right now. I'm losing my mind. What is the name of that court that used the affidavit that was by the that was improperly all the information in it was false, to be able to no, not in Houston, it was in New York. It was the one against President Trump, the one that they used to okay, I'm losing my mind. Station Manager Dick, you have to look this up for me. It's the warrant. It's the court in New York. What was the court in New York that gave the authority to allow President Obama's group, I want to call them henchmen, to go after and do surveil over President Trump and get into his Trump Tower?
I don't know.
It's a court, and it's a warrant.
You mean the FISA court?
Thank you, FISA. I kept saying FISA. Yes, FISA warrant, and it stands for. What does that stand for?
Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court.
Thank you. And the only way you can get these warrants is if there is under the Federal Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, I think it is, that they can show that there is some there's some justification for getting a search warrant, or to be able to open up their bank records and their phone records and all that. And that's kind of like a search warrant, but search warrants are state, well, they can be federal too, but it's when a state officer or a policeman or somebody that's with the law enforcement tells a judge of a court, it could be as low as a JP court, we don't have to be attorneys either, that I want to get a search warrant for someone's house for these reasons. And that's when someone comes with their house with a search warrant, that search warrant may be phony or it may not be valid. And that's when you call an attorney and say, there's an officer or there's someone with a search warrant and they want to come in my house, and you say, can I wait? I'm calling my attorney. They may still come in, but your attorney will get there in time to say, stop this right now. This is improper. This search warrant is not valid. It's not signed right. It doesn't have, there's not a probable cause or due cause or whatever the standard is for it. So you always want to get an attorney involved, because it could be they're searching for a specific thing and they shouldn't be going where they're going. So if someone says they have a search warrant, you want to make sure you get their ID and their badge and have someone look at the search warrant to make sure that they did have the proper rules. And that's what happened with the FISA court. That's why they're all in trouble. So that goes.
Wait. Why they're all in trouble? Why? Because they didn't issue a proper.
Well, the FISA court, yes, it's all over the news right now. When the guy in England that they said was somebody that was in the know got some information saying that President Trump was colluding with the Russians. They got a warrant from the FISA court, and the basis for the warrant was all false. It was all hearsay. There was nothing in it that was true. And then the New York Times was publishing the false stuff. And so when you use the media to advance
your
illegal and improper information, because they have a First Amendment right to say it. If they have some, if it's not, we just went over that. It was it's not defamation if there's a nugget of truth in it. And that's why we have President Trump saying fake news, because in this case it was fake news. And the same thing can apply on a local level, okay? And so if you have somebody that comes to your door and that goes toward the stand your ground that says, I have a search warrant, don't believe it, because it may be that, well, don't not believe it, because it could be a valid search warrant. You don't want, to get shot and killed. But the people in Houston, the couple that they said they had drugs in their house and they were both shot when they went to go stand their ground, but come to find out there wasn't even a gun and there wasn't any drugs in their house, and it was all just, I guess, some bad police officers wanting to get a feather in their hat for, fighting crime. Who knows why they did it? But this same particular detective has now been indicted, and he may be a good guy. Maybe he thought it was right, but two people got killed over it. And the information they used to get the warrant was false, and they found a lot of his cases got dismissed where he was involved because he gave false information at other times. Even if the people were guilty, a lot of them are being reviewed, and
because
their judgments are being vacated because it was now tarnished, and that happens. And it kind of helps, it's going to help criminals too. That's the bad thing, is when you've got
Tony,
officer.
but I mean, the old thing, I guess nobody believes that anymore. I would rather 9 people that are guilty get off if I can protect that one innocent person by the same rules.
Well, I wouldn't want the 9 guilty ones to get off if they come to my house and shoot me, so I'm going to say...
Well, right. But still, it's like, innocent...
But you won't have to worry about that if you stand your ground.
Okay, stand your ground.
And we've talked about purchasing guns, and when you can purchase them. There's no reason you can't purchase a gun, and you can have guns in your home. You don't have a license to have guns in your home to protect yourself. But certain people can't have guns in their home, and I'm going to qualify that, because if you're a felon, or if you've been arrested for DWI, they've made these rules sort of, they've changed them. Wow, I've talked a lot today. Station Manager Dick is telling me we've talked too much because we're almost
done. That flew by.
Oh my God,
okay.
Stand your ground. Well, then I'm going to say real quick on the 2-minute warning rule here that for people that put signs up in our neighborhood that you may be able to find, and they have amazing attorneys, so I'm not telling them anything, that the sign may be valid because of the Texas Property Code Chapter 202 may allow it under one of their exceptions. It's not a signage exception, but if they can make it a political sign, but it really says no trespass, or if the covenants say that security, then there may be a way in your covenants that you can tweak it, because I think it's reasonable right now to be able to warn to protect the burglars that they're going to be shot, and these people are mean business. The stand your ground. Well, I guess we probably will have to continue our show.
Yeah, let's talk about, we'll finish the stand your ground, and then the HOA, how it applies, and also can be more restrictive. But, I mean, just quickly, if it's more restrictive, what defaults? Does it default to the statute? Okay, guys, thanks for listening. We want to remind you to...
Serve God by serving others, and it depends.
And, have a great week, guys.
Today's show was recorded and broadcasted live on irlonestar.com, Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and all rights and ownership are reserved to Lone Star Community Radio. For more information regarding this program and Lone Star Community Radio, visit us online at irlonestar.com. Lone Star Community Radio is Montgomery County's community radio station, serving the community with local programming on TV, radio, and online. If you enjoyed today's program, please support us by sponsorship or starting your own show. Contact us today by phone or text at 936-666-1084 or email the station at lscrstudios@gmail.com.